Sri Baijayant Panda.
Thank you, sir. Sir, in rising to speak on the demand for grants on home affairs, I would like to put things in context. Over these last few days, as we have been discussing for ministry after ministry, one point has kept coming up again and again, that in line with the principles of federalism, a lot of funds from the national exchequer is now being directly transferred to the states. And as a result, many of the centrally sponsored schemes are getting reduced allocations, and there has been a lot of discussion about that. Sir, I would like to just take a moment on that and explain that when it comes to the federal concept of fiscal devolution, the late Shri Biju Patnaik was one of the pioneering national leaders who demanded that. 25 years ago, he created a storm by using the phrase that it has come time for states like Odisha to get fiscal independence. The Odisha Chief Minister, Shri Naveen Patnaik, has also had a consistent track record for asking for this kind of devolution, and the Prime Minister himself, when he was a Chief Minister and even after taking office as Prime Minister, has espoused this cause. So when it comes to home affairs, this is perhaps the one area where we need to recognize that the central government, the Home Ministry, has a special responsibility which in many cases cannot be devolved to the states, although law and order remains a state responsibility. And let me put this in context, sir. If we look at the funds allocated this year, whether you compare it with last year's budget estimate or last year's revised estimate, there has been a very significant increase. And this is something that needs to be commended. But sir, I will come to the point of allocation to states and various programs where the center has a responsibility and needs to continue to discharge its responsibility. If you look at the sums compared to the budget estimate of last year of 2014-15, there has been almost a 4.8% increase, which is an increase from 74,884 crores upwards. And now, sir, the budget estimate has gone up from 74,884 crores to 78,470 crores. Similarly, sir, if you look at the revised estimate of last year, there has been a significantly higher increase this year of almost of little more than 11.5%, with the revised estimate going up from 70,358 crores to by more than 11.5% this year. This is a very significant increase, sir. But here the issue comes up about central responsibility and states' responsibility. Sir, if you look at the discussion in the Standing Committee on Home, something very interesting comes up, that Home Ministry itself disagrees with some of these proposals made by the Finance Ministry, that some programs which had so far been handled by the central government will be either wound up or will be devolved to the states themselves. And sir, what is most interesting is that those of us in the Standing Committee have given a lot of support to this idea, that the central government needs to continue to have responsibility for certain key areas where the national security is involved. And I will come to these specific areas in a minute, sir. So because of the lack of time, I cannot speak comprehensively on the entire demand for grants. I would like to speak on three broad areas, sir. The broad areas are left-wing extremism, which affect a large part of our country, including states like mine, on police modernization, and on disaster management. These are the three broad areas I want to highlight, sir. Sir, if we look at left-wing extremism, in 2014 alone, last year, we had 1,090 incidents and 309 deaths caused by those who call themselves Maoists. This is a very large number. Now, it does show an improvement over the year before that. Compared to the previous year, that is 2013, where the incidents were 1,136 and deaths were 397, these have come down to 1,090 and 309. This, of course, is commendable, that the trend is improving, but these figures are something to be worried about. If more than 1,000 incidents continue to happen throughout the year, throughout our country, this is something that we must all take very seriously. And sir, 4 states primarily get affected by this, and these add up to these 4 states which get the brunt of the attack are Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and Bihar. But sir, it is important to note that the government's own target of tackling left-wing extremism covers 10 states and 106 districts. So it remains incumbent on the central government, remains incumbent on the Home Ministry to tackle these core areas of problems, not just with a security angle. It cannot be just with a stick alone. It has to be with development as well. And one of the reasons that our overall incidents are going down, and in Odisha also we have experienced a reduction, is that development is happening. Roads are being built, hospitals are being built, schools are being built. More tribal children are getting to stay in hostels and get a proper education for the first time. These are first generation learners. So the carrot as well, the developmental angle also is working. But the security angle, there is a concern that unless the central government's Home Ministry remains focused with a nationwide focus on left-wing extremism, we will continue to have this problem. So we have very many schemes, but this, for example, we have the Mahatma Gandhi NREGA scheme, the Backward Regions Grant Fund, the National Rural Health Mission. All these schemes are there. But this is precisely the crux of the issue that is being discussed, that if in cooperative federalism you are transferring bulk funds to the states, and states will have their own priorities. For example, Kerala has a much higher indicator of primary education than Odisha. So Odisha may prefer to put more of its funds at its disposal in primary education. Kerala may prefer to put more of the funds at its disposal into something else. But this is where the central responsibility comes in, because particularly where left-wing extremism affected districts, these 106 districts through 10 states, and particularly the 4 states which are most affected, both the aspects of developmental expenditure and security action needs to go hand in hand, and this is where the Home Ministry's hands cannot be tied. They need to be given a much freer hand. To address the infrastructure deficiencies, the government is working on what is called the Integrated Action Plan, the IAP, and the additional central assistance, the ACA, for left-wing affected areas. And the state governments are also availing some of these benefits, but these need to be coordinated much better. One of the successes, sir, has been the government's comprehensive surrender cum rehabilitation policies, which have been implemented not only at a national level, but in cooperation with the states. Sir, you will see almost every week from states like Odisha and all these other 4 or 5 core affected states from left-wing extremism, you will find regular instances of former extremists surrendering themselves and coming into the mainstream, which I think is one of the success stories. Sir, I want to raise one particular aspect here related to grant, which is that there is an SRE scheme, which is security-related expenditures, where the center gives assistance to the states, particularly when there are casualties of security forces or even civilians which are coming out from left-wing extremism, and compensation has to be given, and a lot of other expenditure is there. Last year, the amount estimated, the revised estimate, was 737.37 crores. This year, it has gone up only to 840 crores. I would like to draw the attention of the Honorable Minister and this House that this sum may not be enough, because the kind of compensation that is being given to security personnel who are risking their lives. Only last week, we have had another instance of security personnel who have been killed. 4 instances, and their families. So this amount may not be sufficient, sir, for a nationwide attack on left-wing extremism, and to compensate those of our citizens who are risking their lives, this amount needs to be increased. Sir, I want to come to the second major aspect I want to discuss, which is modernization of police forces. This overall plan to modernize India's police from British Raj era structure has been going on since 1969-70, sir. So that is 45 years we have been talking about modernizing the police, and we have been taking some steps in bits and pieces. The time has come for some very comprehensive action to be taken. And this is where I would like to point out that although some good work is going on, we need to do a lot more. The good work that is going on is the emphasis being put by the Home Ministry on improving police training, infrastructure, number of police stations, housing, upgrading of weaponry and communication. But sir, I would like to draw the attention of the House to one major, what I feel is a shortcoming that needs to be addressed. During 2014-15, 8 of these centrally sponsored schemes, sir, have been, I'll just take a couple of minutes, sir. So during 2014-15, 8 of these centrally sponsored schemes for police modernization, for special infrastructure for left-wing extremism, for counter-insurgency and anti-terrorist schools, for crime and criminal tracking network and systems, and most importantly for national cyclone risk management, have all been merged into one scheme. Sir, I have no problem with many schemes being merged into one scheme for streamlining. But sir, the problem is that none of these schemes, except for disaster management for cyclone, have been given any funding. So it does not make sense that we streamline by merging 8 schemes into one scheme, but we don't give them any money. And when it comes to cyclone risk management, National Cyclone Risk Management Project, sir, the projection was 783 crores and only 416 crores has been allocated. This too has not been found acceptable, sir, by those of us MPs who are from cyclone-prone areas. Not only am I from Odisha, sir, my constituency is Kendrapada, which is at the tail end of the Mahanadi basin. We get affected by cyclones and floods every other year, if not every year. And most of my colleagues from Odisha and nearby states have the same experience. And sir, at the Andhra Pradesh also, sir, at the very minimum, the department's, the ministry's own estimate of 783 crores must be granted. In fact, there is a case for much more. And if you look at the disaster management, my final 1 minute, sir. If you look at disaster management, sir, the allocation of 919 crores, 0.29 in the current budget against 576.28 of last year's revised budget seems like a major increase, particularly because it will go to capital outlay. But the fact remains, sir, that 900 crores is really nothing in the overall context of what we are seeing, even compared to last 2 days, what we have seen affecting Bihar and Nepal. And one final point I would like to make, sir. The Home Ministry's responsibility, apart from funding, is to coordinate. One example I want to give, when Jammu and Kashmir faced floods, some of us were approached whether Odisha could provide certain assistance. We can, sir. Just like the Chief Minister has offered day before yesterday, last year also, we have certain expertise, as everybody knows. Odisha has done a good job in handling cyclones and floods, particularly water-based relief, boats, lifeguards. Odisha has expertise which other states may not have. Instead of creating parallel facilities, Odisha can provide, but central government has to take a coordinating role. Different states can have different expertise depending on which is a mountainous area, which is a coastal area. Central government can take a coordinating role. So one last thing, sir. Central Industrial Security Force, CISF, is doing airport security.
No, time is there.
They are not suited, sir. They need a specially trained force.
Then what about the demands you tell me?
Thank you, sir.